Alrighty. Hello, everyone. My name is Armand. I'm a member of the Youth Leadership Council at EarthEcho International. And today we are so excited to have students from all over the globe joining us as we learn more about plastics in our oceans. EarthEcho International is a global nonprofit founded on simply the belief that youth have the power to change our planet. Reaching more than 2 million people in 146 countries, we provide free original content, immersive experiences, and trusted resources to empower young people to become leaders and problem solvers in their communities and around the world. And also a reminder that you can send in questions for our host today, and we will break throughout today's presentation to address them. So feel free to start typing questions in the chat space on YouTube or even in the Zoom Q&A feature. But without further ado, I'd love to welcome our guest, Jenna Hartley. Jenna Hartley is a PhD student at North Carolina State University and a NOAA Dr. Nancy Foster Scholar. Jenna is a former classroom teacher and is advised by Dr. Catherine Stevenson on a North Carolina Sea Grant funded research project that examines the role of students as environmental change agents in their communities, specifically on the topic of marine debris or even plastic pollution. Jenna is currently working to train dozens of fourth and fifth grade teachers in a marine debris curriculum developed by the Duke University Marine Lab Community Science Program. Several thousand students just spent most of their school year learning about marine debris, participating in an international citizen science trash cleanup, and sharing what they learned with their parents, community members, and local officials through community outreach events. Jenna thinks that young people are uniquely poised to play important roles in tackling environmental grand challenges and is excited to share that with you today. So without further ado, we are so excited to have her here today. Let's go ahead and welcome Jenna. Hi, Jenna.
Hi, thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Thank you again. We are so excited to have you here, as I mentioned before. So go ahead and take it away.
Wonderful. All right, thanks. And hi to everyone joining. I'm so happy that you're here. When I found out more about this program, I realized that what we're researching in our lab is exactly the mission of EarthEcho International, specifically the youth leadership portion. And I'm happy to be able to share some of that with what I assume are a lot of youth leaders here with us today. So thank you for having me. And I will trying to screen share, but it looks like I don't have the capacity. So I think I'll have to be enabled to do that.
No worries. We have some amazing people in our background that'll help you out with that.
No problem. And I'd love to, like Armand said, I'm a former classroom teacher, so I'd love to be able to be as interactive as possible. Please, at any point, ask questions, and we can stop just like at any moment. No worries there. So hopefully we're good to go now. Everyone can see.
Seems like you should be able to start sharing. Oh, perfect.
Perfect. Great. All right, so thank you, Armand, for that introduction. Like he said, I am at North Carolina State University in Raleigh, North Carolina. I am also funded by North Carolina Sea Grant. They are funding the actual research side of the project. And then I'm my tuition and I'm a Nancy Foster Scholar. So that is a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. If any of you want to talk about that as well, I'm happy to talk about that. I feel very lucky to have received that and would love to help anyone else apply to it. It's a wonderful program. So that said, let's go ahead and get started. And don't say I didn't warn you. I do want this to be interactive. So the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is get a pen and paper or a crayon and napkin, whatever the case may be. Grab something to write with and something to write on. And we're going to have a little bit of fun. Everybody ready? All right, so in this picture, that is my son Everett. He's 3.5. And prior to him being around in my life, I didn't know very much about dinosaurs at all, but he is obsessed with dinosaurs, as many 3.5-year-old little people are. And so I've learned so much about dinosaurs as a result of having him around. Before he was born, I probably could have identified 2 dinosaurs, maybe a few more, but these 2 I had in my back pocket, right? So if you know these 2 dinosaurs, go ahead and write that down on your sheet of paper. Be warned, they are going to get more challenging as we go on to the next round. Okay, you got these 2? no worries if you don't know them. Like I said, I didn't know them. So this is low stakes game we're playing. All right, next round. Let's see if you know this next set of dinosaurs. I only learned these since Everett got into them. So we'll call these the pre-COVID-19 dinosaurs. But then COVID-19 happened. I'm home every day. I'm on like day 65 to 70 of being home with Everett, as I'm sure many of you are. And we found this Dino 101 school that was being hosted every day at noon where you could learn about dinosaurs. And it basically drove all of the homeschool that we're doing in my house right now. And I learned these dinosaurs. Look at that craziness. And many more. I could probably know like over 100 dinosaurs now, tons of facts about them, when they lived. I wish my PhD was in dinosaurs because I got that part in the bag. But go ahead and write down this next round if you think you know these. Anybody think they got them all? Put it in the chat box if you think you got them all. Prizes are on the table, to be determined prizes. Armand, we got anybody that thinks they know them all? No? Okay, I didn't either, no worries. So, oh, we have somebody?
Let's see. No one yet. No one yet.
Okay.
They're probably on the same page as I.
Yeah, same. T-Rex and Stegosaurus, right? So those are the top two. There's also, Tupandactylus. Who had ever even heard of that? Not me. This concept is not unique to my family, where you learn something because your child encourages you to learn something. In fact, perhaps many of you here today are parents with children and you're learning because your child is interested, or you're here because your parents have you here and they're interested. This bi-directional transfer of knowledge from students to their parents and vice versa is called intergenerational learning, and it can go either way. In my case, it's gone from child to parent in a big way in terms of dinosaurs. And this theory is at the core, the backbone of the research that we're doing in my lab. And like I said, while I wish we were doing it on dinosaurs, we're doing it instead on marine debris, which is equally as pressing and extremely important right now, especially particularly critical right now during COVID-19. Maybe you've seen some of the news about how littering and specifically plastic littering has increased during this time. But this age of plastics obviously has benefited humans in many ways, and plastics are critical to us. It's the backbone of personal protective equipment right now for medicine and the medical field. But for everything that it's done, including providing modern conveniences, it also has a lot of complications and is a real threat to marine ecosystems. 23% of marine mammal species are negatively impacted by marine debris, 36% of seabird species, and 86% of sea turtle species. So this is an increasingly problematic issue facing marine life, but also the humans that depend on the ocean, which is all of us. And these single-use plastics in particular can persist in the environment for centuries to millennia. So it's an issue right now. It's particularly even more an issue right now. It's really interesting to have this conversation during COVID-19, and I'm excited to hear from you all about your thoughts on some of that or what you might have seen in your communities. But we are trying to tackle it through the lens of education. So like Armand said, I am a former classroom science teacher, and how we are doing this is with a curriculum that was written, piloted, produced by Duke University Marine Lab. It's for 4th and 5th grade students. I'll share the link at the end. It's totally free. It's all online. It has about 15 wonderful activities. And so what we have done is we have paired up with teachers across the state. We train the teachers on the curriculum. They do the activities in their classroom. And then we survey everybody, the teachers, the students' parents, and even some local officials and local adults that the students interact with in terms of marine debris and marine debris policy. And that's where I think we're just a perfect match for EarthEcho, because that kind of youth engagement and youth empowerment really does go a long way in making real change in communities. So one thing that I'd like to engage you all and know what you think is, where do you think most marine debris comes from? So here's a poll that'll come up, and go ahead and pick the answer that you think. First option, trash that falls off of boats into the ocean. The second option is trash that people leave on the beach that blows or washes into the ocean. The third one is trash from anywhere on land that washes into streams and rivers. And then the last one is I don't know. This is one of the questions on the survey that we give to students that are participating in this program. And I can't see the results, but hopefully there are results coming in. Maybe
Oh yeah,
Jacqueline can, okay.
plenty of results coming in.
All right. What's winning? What's in the lead right now?
Alrighty, it looks like people are really gunning for C.
Okay, well, you all know more about marine debris than many of your peers and people across the country. That is correct. So trash from anywhere on land that washes into streams and rivers and then into the ocean. So this is a like common myth that people don't understand, that the majority of trash inputs into the ocean come from land-based sources. So no matter where you are, from Ohio, New York, New Jersey, Florida to Nebraska, the waste and the litter that you see going into your storm drains ends up in the ocean. And so we did this study all across the entire state of North Carolina, including the mountains, the Piedmont, places that are not necessarily close to the beach at all, to just really hit home this message that it's not just a coastal issue, and all of us play a role in the marine debris crisis. So great job to you on getting that answer correct. And we think that the solution to all of this is kids. And so using this intergenerational learning model, like I said, we are surveying everyone every step of the way. So we give the students, the teachers, the students' parents, all a pre-survey before they begin the curriculum. And then we have the students do all the activities, including a civic engagement activity. And then we give everyone a post-survey at the end of the school year. And so we are like mid data collection right now, which again is really interesting given COVID-19, and we'll see how some of that shakes out. And the bigger slice of this project is going to look at a lot of different relationships. But for this talk, we're really just going to look at the pre-surveys that we took from the students and then match those students to their parents. So for this specific slice of the study, we had 26 teachers, 20 schools across 12 counties. About, it was roughly half were at coastal locations and 5 were inland of those counties. We paired the students with their parents so that we have a matched family unit for 264 students this year. And so what we'll do eventually is pair those with a post-survey. But again, this is just for our pre-survey data. All right, your turn to play again. Yes.
I do have a question. We have somebody in the audience wanting to know that in your surveys, is everyone that is being polled just Americans?
Good question. It depends on the demographics of the school. So these are all public schools across the state of North Carolina. They are not all English speakers as of their first language. That part's certainly becoming evident as we look at some of the data. We do ask about race and ethnicity, but we don't ask about citizenship. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it is a study only currently being done in the United States for our work.
Absolutely, thank you.
Sure. So here's one of the activities that the students do, and I'd like for you all to participate again. I'm going to put up a couple of items, just common items, and I want you to put them in a line based on how long you think it takes for them to break down, from the least amount of time to the longest amount of time, left to right. And by breakdown, it's kind of a tricky question, right? We don't mean like totally disappear, but just small enough that it can almost no longer be seen. If you want to get into the nitty gritty of microscopic or not, we can do that. But roughly how long you think it takes each one of these to break down. And for extra credit, try and assign some years. So if you think 1 to 2 years or 1 to 2 weeks or 20 months, I guess that would be a year and some months. So go ahead and put a time on it as well as putting it in order. And we'll give you 60 seconds.
I feel like for those that visit aquariums often, I know many people haven't in a while because of COVID, but you usually see these amazing diagrams or graphs of a timeline of all of these specific items and how long they degrade. I'm trying to remember that right now in my head as I'm also participating in this activity.
Yeah, I feel like we probably have a much more educated audience here than most. When I first did this, I mean, I'll be totally honest with y'all. I'm a teacher and first and marine debris person second. So when I first did this, I was learning about marine debris just like a lot of the kids were that were involved, and I got them so wrong. So it's very interesting to see what we perceive and what the science actually says. All right, 10 seconds. Let's get them locked in. 5,
Right. And
4.
a special shout out to Ronan. Nice to see you. Thank you for joining us today, Ronan, from New York.
Hi, Rowan. All right, here we go. So here are these in order. Normally we would be clapping and cheering for the people that got it right. And so hopefully give yourself a pat on the back if you got it right. And if you didn't get it right, then you're in good company. I also didn't get these right when I started doing these types of activities. We're all learning, and that's part of the process. So what's very interesting about this is some of these on the far right. I mean, disposable diapers that are used. I mean, when a newborn, you're going through 10 diapers a day. So these things go straight to the landfill, can't be recycled, and then take almost 500 years to break down. Monofilament fishing line is particularly damaging. It causes some of the worst entanglements for specific marine species, and also takes a really, really long time to break down. So these, as startling as they are, there are others here, like our mom was just referring to, where you see some of these timelines at places like aquariums, and you can see just how long some of this is, so how long some of these items really do take to break down, and how damaging that can be to the marine environment. And I will pause here if anyone wants to chat about any of this or talk about any of this before we move on.
Absolutely. Let me go ahead and take a look at some of our chats, see if anybody has any comments. Alrighty.
These dates are pulled from the activity that we use, which is developed by a group called Washed Ashore. And so some of the dates are, for example, plastic bags. Some places report that that's closer to 35 years. And so the dates are a little flexible depending on which source you look at.
And so, Jenna, would you be able to describe really briefly for some of the people in the audience today, what exactly happens when these things break up? What's the effect on marine life?
Good question. I don't know if we have enough time to go over all of it, but I'll try and do it as quickly as possible. It depends on how it's broken down. So there are 3 major mechanisms for breaking them down. They can biodegrade, which is going to happen with your apple core, your orange or banana peel, even kind of the paper towel could be argued, where it just naturally breaks down. And then it can also corrode. So if it corrodes, that's like the tin can that will rust, and corrosion can be even more dangerous because it releases different types of chemicals as the salt breaks it down, and the other elements in the ocean. It can change the chemical composition, which can alter chemistry of certain parts of the ocean, et cetera. And then photodegrade is the third, and that photo just means light. And so that's where the sunlight is breaking it down into smaller pieces. And so, I mean, some of the stuff that's the most dangerous when it's broken down is when it gets really, really small. And so those like microplastics that can get into fish's gills, they don't even know that they're taking it in. It's not even intentional. It's not like the turtle grabbing the bag, which is one thing, but they're just taking it in from breathing. So the smaller it gets, the more damaging it can be. And that's a good analogy for that is us inhaling things in the air, right? Like the smaller the particles, the worse it can be in your lungs. And so there's a similar analogy there for smaller particles in the ocean.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jenna, for answering that. It's pretty incredible the impact something like that has when you don't even think about people that are throwing their trash and stuff like that. It has really big impacts not only on the marine life, but the conditions of the water and stuff like that. Somebody in our audience wants to know is, when a diaper is buried in a landfill, can it really truly break up all the way?
Another good question. And that's one that comes up a lot with the styrofoam cup, because styrofoam cups essentially really never break down. And I think that that's pretty true for disposable diapers. And a lot of the ones on that far end, like disposable diapers and to the right, we don't really know exactly how long it takes for them to break down completely and all the way. And once they do, it's just like leaching chemicals, right? And Yeah, so good question. Yes and no, I think is the answer. And I should preface all of this, like I said, by saying that I'm an education person first and a marine debris person second. So some of
Absolutely.
this I can ask the marine debris people on our team too and get like actual official answers back to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. We
Yeah.
love a specialized expert, so thank you.
Yeah, I've got them on my team, but I don't know that I'm one.
Thank you, thank you. Another question we have is glass as harmful to the environment, even though it takes as long to degrade,
That's a wonderful
break down?
question. So glass is the same, silica is the same chemical composition as sand. So glass really just breaks back down into sand. And so I would argue, again, not a marine debris expert, but I would argue that it is less harmful since it is like a product of a naturally occurring substance.
Gotcha, gotcha. On that same topic, someone wanted to know why it would take, a million odd years for glass to be broken down.
Right. It's more like a million to never because it doesn't really break down. It just turns back into sand. Right. So it's almost like the full circular process. It doesn't really go away.
Yeah, I can totally see how that, yeah.
Okay.
Perfect. And then Ewan Van Shen actually wants to know how is the bag time so short in terms of breaking down, or why would it be so?
Right. Yeah. That one is like debated. It's heavily debated right now among a lot of different scientists and waste experts, because like I said, some people are putting that more on like a 35-year end and some people are putting it closer to the 10-year end of the spectrum. And it's how thin the plastic is. It's what it's made out of. Some of them are made out of different products like virgin oil as opposed to some of them are made from recycled products. And so it depends on, I mean, I'm sure you've felt different types of plastic bags. They're not all created equal. And that I think plays a lot into the scale of breakdown for those.
Alrighty, gotcha. And then another
And one
question
thing
I
that's
think we
really
have.
interesting right
Yeah,
now, oh, go ahead, sorry.
no
Well,
worries,
as
go ahead.
many of you might know, is oil prices are really plummeting right now. And so right before all of this happened, there was a bigger push for using recycled products to remake bags and remake bottles. But now because the price of oil is so cheap, we're seeing a surge in like virgin oil being used for plastics again, because it's cheaper than going through the recycling process. So some of the like recycling is taking a big hit right now, the industry, through this time of COVID-19, because obviously first and foremost, human health is the biggest priority and we're pushing out a bunch of protective equipment for that. But secondly, because of the plummeting oil prices. So like a really interesting thing about the plastic bags, California just lifted they did have a ban on plastic bags. They just lifted it. New Jersey, New York, and the United Kingdom were supposed to roll out plastic bag bans starting this year, and they've postponed those because of what's going on. And so it's going to be a really interesting time to see what shakes out in the next couple of years with that.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you brought that up. That is really interesting to keep tabs on, because these next couple of years, months are going to look very, very interesting. It's not to go onto the topic of COVID, but it truly did have impacts across the spectrum. It's completely crazy. But I will add this last question for our little question break here. And it is for some of the people in the audience, they may know this, but is there a way to dispose of everyday objects such as plastic bottles, cans, and even diapers to reduce the risk of simply ending up in the ocean?
Yeah, I mean, anything that you can stop from going down a storm drain. So any type of disposal, for example, they're like if you're on the beach, even if there's like a recycling can on the beach, putting your plastic bottle into that is actually riskier than taking it back with you and putting it into a dumpster because of wind, etc. So like the safest way to do it is somewhere where you know that as close as you can get it to the source where you're trying to get it to go to without it blowing off the truck or blowing out of your trash can right. So if as much as you can control of the process of how it gets transported from your hands to the recycling center is going to be more helpful. I really try to never put things in a trash can on the beach or near a body of water because it's too close, right? You just never know that might be how it gets up into a local waterway.
Yeah, that is actually a really good point. I never really thought, most people will rely on the trash cans that, city government, adds to those beaches around that area or around any water resource. But it is a good point to just want to make sure that the trash truly doesn't end up in that beach or that waterway. It's just to take it home and, if you have an appropriate recycling bin, something like that will also help. But thank you, Jenna, so much for taking this little question break with us. You can take it away.
Sure. Those were awesome questions. And I have one written down to move up the chain to my expert though. All right, so the activities like the one you just did, How Long Till It's Gone, there are multiple activities that are included in the curriculum. That was one of them. There are also trash collections and trash audits that students can do in their homes, in their schools. And then the citizen science piece was part of the International Ocean Conservancy, and they do trash cleanups across the internationally, and they have a wonderful worksheet, and it's linked in our curriculum, which I'll put at the end here. And so students participated in that. Some of them did a beach sweep. This picture on the left that you see, this student was part of, there were 350 people out on the beach that day collecting trash, and that was in Wilmington, North Carolina, and that was wonderful. There were they had police escorts, and they had their local news audiences up there, so that was really wonderful for that school. Then there are also just your classroom activities where we tried to include, or the Duke University Marine Lab, when they wrote it, included every subject. So there's writing, math, there's a little bit of physics, there's art, and the students have made some incredible art projects that I'll show you on the next slide. And then the piece that I'm most interested in, and I think ties really nicely, and like I said, with this group, is this civic engagement part, right? So the students have total decision-making authority on how they want to engage adults in their communities. And what was so fun about this is the teacher said, once I taught them about marine debris, all I had to do was just get out of their way, right? So the kids are inspired, they're motivated, they are so creative, they have wonderful ideas, and the teachers just gave them the reins to go. And I love that so much. I think that is a really powerful way to encourage youth empowerment and youth engagement. And so the students wrote, directed, cast their own plays. They had talent shows. One of them had a slam poetry event. This group you see in the picture on the right, they are presenting to their town hall, and they had the town hall, they gave them little whiteboards, and I think I have a picture of it later in the slideshow, but they'd ask them questions like, how long does it take a plastic bag to write down? And they'd hold up, the town hall folks would hold up their answers, and it was wonderful. Everyone was laughing. Their answers were so wrong. Everyone in this audience probably did better, but it was just a really great way to engage and bring more knowledge to the issue that not everyone's on the same page about how long it takes these things to break down. And so here are a couple pictures of some of those civic engagement events. Here you can see we encourage the youth to talk directly to the journalists in their communities. Here is the picture that I was telling you on the bottom left, where you can see the gentleman holding up their answers on the whiteboards. In the middle, the girl is that was part of the trash fashion show. And these are all parts of plastic bags, the pink around her neck. This was the boy holding the clipboard is a citizen science piece. And then this on the far right shows one of the art engagement events where they collected bottles from their cafeteria, then they dyed them, and they pulled them apart and turned them into like Chihuly style blown glass art displays. And they invited their community to come out and see their art displays. So this is the kind of stuff that is totally non-prescriptive. The students do whatever they want to do. And I think it A, makes it more impactful, and B, just makes it more fun. The kids are into it. And so that has been such a joy to see and be a part of. So getting into what we actually have found in the data, I'd love to share some of that with you. And I'll go over the elements that are on here, and then I'll ask your opinion. So here are some of the factors that we think impact decision-making behavior, especially environmental behaviors. And we asked these of the students. So this one on the far left, social norms. A norm is essentially like what's normalized in your family and peer groups. So for example, we asked questions like, my family takes care of the environment. My family thinks it's important to take care of the environment. My family thinks that I should take care of the environment. Those are called norms. We ask them the same thing about their friends. My friends usually take care of the environment. My friends think I should take care of the environment. So we asked about norms. Then we asked about their knowledge, so how much they know about marine debris. One of them was the question that it sounds like you all scored perfect on in the beginning: where does marine debris come from? And then other ones were about breakdown times, sources of marine debris, and species impacted. And then we asked about their parents' behaviors. And then these are all marine debris related behaviors. Like, I can refuse a straw. I refuse a straw when I'm offered one at a restaurant. I use reusable bags. I use a reusable bottle. I use a reusable cutlery. And that's silverware, right? So those are different marine debris specific behaviors. And then we just asked, how often do you have these conversations with your teachers, your family, and your friends? So if you had to guess and pick only one, what do you think most drives your behavior? And if you are not a student, then maybe think about your parents' behaviors. Think about when you were 9 and 10 years old and how you might have answered as a 9 and 10-year-old. And again, I can't see the responses roll in, so maybe Armand can narrate for us as these things roll in.
Absolutely. I am looking at them coming in as we speak.
Yay,
I'm really
okay,
curious
cool.
to see what the actual answer is.
Yeah, give us some real time.
It seems like a lot of people are swaying towards family and peer norms. I also got a couple of tide and knowledge of your own. It's tied, actually, sorry, with
Ooh, tied, okay. This is like a horse race. Although horse racing's kind of passe now.
A lot of people are going for your own knowledge. We're about 40% of your own knowledge.
Okay, this is great. Keep it coming. Has everybody voted?
Let's see, a couple more seconds. What do we got? Awesome. Social norms. Okay, I see. Okay, awesome. We're family and peer norms. Look like it's taking the lead here.
Wow. Cool.
And let's see. And it looks like we're going to go ahead and, okay, 40% discussion. This is really interesting. Oh, okay. So it looks like discussion with teachers, family, and friends is tied with your own knowledge. And everyone has voted, but it looks like everyone was going with social norms.
Fascinating. You all are amazing. Okay, that's not what most people say, which is really, really cool that you said it that way. Spoiler alert, you're right. At least in this study. But the majority of people think that, or at least how most of education is driven, and maybe you have experienced this in your own time as a student. All of us have been students at some point, where you think like, they think it's knowledge, right? So we're going to teach them this thing, and then they're going to be so inspired that they're going to change their behavior. But most recent studies have shown us that that's just not the case, right? You can tell, so talk to someone until you're blue in the face, and they can even learn the material, and it doesn't actually mean it's going to change what they do. Climate change is a really good example of that, right? So what we found, and what you all are correct about, is that, oh, sorry, I left that slide off. We found that the norms about family members, so specifically family norms, had an impact, or were statistically significant, of impacting student behaviors around marine debris. And that the biggest impact was discussions with family. So discussions with teachers were not statistically significant, and discussions with friends were not statistically significant, but the largest impact that we saw was discussions with family, which I think is really, really a fascinating finding. And this is even before, I keep coming back to COVID-19, and I am sorry about that, but this is even before that, right? We've all been home with each other now for 60 to 70 some days, and we're having even more discussions than we've ever had before. And while we are seeing more litter and more single-use plastics being used, perhaps we are balancing the scales a little bit by just talking with family more while we're together at home. And so that's one thing that's made me a little hopeful during this time. And then one thing that was really interesting is that for students that are a little older than the age group that we're working with 9 and 10-year-olds specifically. Like when they've done this for middle schoolers and high schoolers, they found that peer norms really rise to the top, right? Like when your perceptions about your friends group really matter more, but that this age range, this 4th and 5th grade age range, that family trumps peers, which is really fascinating. And it's just a really interesting time to think about like youth development and parenting at that age, which as a parent, I'm like interested to see how that's going to shake out. So I think the biggest thing here is that even if you're at home, even if you're 9 or 10 years old, you can't vote. You know, sometimes it probably feels like you can't make your own decisions. And I get that. We've all been there, but you can help and you can make a decision and you don't even have to leave your home, right? You can just have conversations about whatever's important to you, right? I'm not going to say, hey, go home and talk to your mom and dad about marine debris, because you can talk about whatever you think is important. And maybe you can move the needle on that, whatever that cause is for you. So I love this quote from Margaret Mead, that never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. And I would argue to push that even further and say that you're doing it right now, even more than you can probably recognize and understand. So conclusion, if you're a young person in this audience right now, A, you're amazing. B, you're way more powerful than you think. And C, talk to your family. So the next steps for this work are that we really want to look at pairing some of those post surveys. So like I said, what we just did and the data that I just showed you was about pre-surveys only. So we want to pair up pre and post and see if things changed after the students engaged in the curriculum. And we really want to see if students are impacting other adults in their community, not just ones that they're related to. That could be, I think, really powerful, especially, you know, we surveyed those local officials in that picture that you saw at that town hall meeting. Maybe kids are able to move the needle way before they're of voting age. And I think that if that shakes out, it'll be really, really interesting and an exciting time for youth engagement and youth empowerment across the country. So this is a huge team effort. There are so many people helping this all happen. There are 6 wonderful PIs on this project that are all just really great to work with. Like I said, I've got a lot of experts in my corner and I'm really grateful for that, including like Dr. Jenna Jambeck and Dr. Liz DiMattia, who are both really wonderful specialists. And then NC State University and the department that I'm in is so great. The Nancy Foster Scholarship is absolutely wonderful. Like I said, I'd love to talk to any of you about that. And then many students that have helped me. It's such a team effort. And then obviously we have to thank the participating teachers, students, and those students' families who agree to do this for the year and let us survey them. And then my own family, because most of this I have learned from just having Everett around to teach me things about dinosaurs, but also that this really does happen, and it happens in big ways that people might not give enough credit to, right? So you make a difference, even if you're at home, no matter what the subject is. Just talk to your family about it and see what happens. So I'd love to hear from any of you. Feel free to email me anytime. We do have a hashtag on Twitter that has a lot of really fun stories from teachers, participating teachers, and photos of students in action. And then the link to the curriculum is in the bottom. And I think that Jacqueline's going to drop that into the chat box as well, so that you can have a look at any of the activities if you need something fun to do while you're at home talking to your family. Thank you so much for having me, and go out there and keep changing the world.
Wow, thank you so much, Jenna. Very inspiring words and lots of information from Jenna and even Margaret Mead. We really appreciate your time being here. Before we do close up and wrap up, we definitely want to open up an opportunity for our audience members to participate in a little bit of a Q&A. Jenna, if you don't mind.
Definitely, yeah.
Awesome, perfect. It looks like one of the questions that we had from before I wasn't able to get to was, and I know you said you weren't specifically a debris expert, but somebody wanted to know roughly how long it would take for an oil can to break down.
Like a drum, an oil drum?
I would say maybe an oil drum, and then we could even maybe talk like a regular can that you can find in your pantry.
Oh, well, interesting. So I guess we would put that in like the hard plastics category. So I don't think we really had that on anything like that on there. But I would probably put it up closer to that far right side of what we were seeing. The thicker that plastic is going to be, the longer it's going to take. So I'd put it, I mean, I don't want to like guess at a number and be way off because I told you that we did that to the town hall people and what happened there. But yeah, I would definitely
Right.
put it on the longer breakdown side for sure.
Okay, cool.
Good
And it's actually
question.
really interesting. Absolutely. It's interesting to kind of think about, like you just said, Jenna, that the thicker the plastic is, usually it's going to take a little bit more time or a lot more time, depending on how, thick that plastic is. We have another question from Ronan, and this might be a question that you may or may not know. I'm not sure. I definitely think I don't know this answer, but it says, what companies are working on washing machine designs to filter out microplastic fibers from clothing before they enter the drain?
Oh my God, what a wonderful question. There are so
Right?
many companies doing this. And why am I, when you get asked a question and you like blank on the name, Samantha Athey, Athey, is a PhD student at the university, I think she's at the University of Toronto, and she's researching this right now. And they are working on some really, really cool design. And I think she's specifically like trying to pull microfibers out. But there are a couple different companies that already have this in motion. I don't want to like promote them off the top of my head. I don't know what the rules are with that, but I would definitely recommend looking up Samantha Athey because she's doing research on this specifically and is just like a wonderful science communicator. She's on Twitter and should be pretty easy to find. Great question. Ronan, right? That was a really good question.
Thank you, Jenna. Thank you so much. And I do have a question regarding the scholars. So everyone's wanting to kind of know, what is the NOAA Dr. Nancy Foster Scholar?
Great. So that is NOAA is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and they have, I had never even heard about it, this incredible scholarship for graduate students. And it is part of the National Marine Sanctuaries, which are like a subgroup of NOAA. And if you're doing any type of research as a graduate student, it's only for graduate students, that it pertains to one of the sanctuary goals or missions or something that they're working on, then you can apply to be a scholar for them. And they fund basically your whole graduate research, if you're either master's or a PhD. I can't even like say it without crying. It's basically the most wonderful thing that's ever happened to me. So it's just a really great opportunity. They specifically are trying to increase women and other underrepresented groups in marine science that are like notoriously underrepresented in marine sciences. And it has just been one of the most like empowering groups I've ever been a part of. It's so inspirational. I went, and like I said, I was a teacher. And so I went to this first thing and kind of felt like, oh, I'm just a teacher. And there's a geophysicist from Stanford and like everyone's absolutely brilliant. And they just said like, what are you talking about? Why are you putting yourself down? Education's just as important, if not more so than all of the rest of this. And it was kind of the first time that had ever been said to me by like engineers and other people that I consider to be in this like, different realm of STEM.
Right.
And it has made a huge difference in my life and how I approach my work. So it's a wonderful program, and feel free to email me if you want to talk more about it. If you're just an undergrad, then the Hollings, NOAA also has a Hollings scholarship for undergraduates that are interested in marine work. And it's also a really great program for undergrads. So happy to talk about that too.
Well, definitely it sounds like it's had a really big impact in your life, and it potentially could have impacts for everyone in our audience if it applies to you. I definitely think I'm going to actually look into something like that. So thank you so much, Jenna. And
Do,
we have
yes,
another question
yeah,
from
definitely
Ewan.
do.
Absolutely. It says, Ewan wants to know, what were the three ways of decomposing again?
Oh, great. Biodegrade, corrode, and photodegrade.
All right. Thank you so much, Ewan, for asking that question. And just a reminder for everyone on our Zoom webinar, there is a link in the chat that goes straight to the curriculum. just in case you guys wanted to use that later. Another question we have is from Ari. She wants to know if you could redefine intergenerational learning.
Definitely. Yeah, great question, Ari. So that is essentially just, we call it the bi-directional transfer of knowledge, either from students to, or kids to their parents and vice versa. So it could either be, I use the example of like my son teaching me about dinosaurs, but it could also be me teaching him how to use a fork, right? It's whatever the thing is. It doesn't matter what the content is, what the topic is. It doesn't have to just be students to parents. So there are some people that are looking at it like skipping a generation to elders and grandparents, and that's really neat in certain cultures and groups where that is like a dominant relationship too. And so there are a couple people looking at it through different environmental topics. Someone in my lab just did it with climate change and found some really fascinating results. And then there are people that are looking at it with flooding, and essentially just how students and young people can build resilience on some of these topics in their families and it's not even like teaching their parents, right? It's just having a conversation, having these family discussions, making sure it's a two-way street. It's just a really powerful way to kind of shift some of these social norms and family norms.
Yeah, absolutely.
And feel free
Definitely.
to follow up if you want more on that, because I love that question and would love to talk more about it. Thanks, Ari.
Thank you so much, Jenna. Somebody wants to know, how long does it take for sunscreen to, degrade?
I have no idea. That's a great question.
It'd be some good time for them to research.
Yeah, that is great.
And then somebody,
tell me when you find out.
Yes, me too. I'd be really helpful. Someone from New York wants to know, what can they do to get active in their communities?
Great question. Well, I think it depends on what topic you're interested in, right? And my biased answer based on my research would be like step one, start at home, right? So talk to your family, practice engaging in that way that's really in a group that's really safe, people that love you, where you can like try out how you want to talk about things and how you want to approach issues. And then in New York, there are so many different groups that you could be a part of. One that I really love, I used to live in New York. I don't know if you're in New York City, but in New York City, I loved We Act for Environmental Justice. It's all caps, WEACT. If you're interested in environmental justice issues, they do just remarkable community empowerment work. It's not really marine debris specific, but they are doing really, really neat stuff in their community. And there are a lot of groups. So if you want to chat offline, you can send me an email and would love to talk to you about that. But again, my opinion would say start at home, start small, and then build from there.
I would definitely agree. Thank you, Jenna. And I think last question before we wrap everything is going to be a personal question for myself. Do you have any advice for future young environmental leaders like myself, or even people in our audience as young as, elementary kid students? Do you have any advice for us?
Oh my goodness, that's a great question. Well, I think there's a lot of pressure right now to have your whole life mapped out. And I think that starts really early. I mean, I met an 8th grader once that was like, what can I do to put on my resume? And I was like, your resume, you're in 8th grade, like go outside and play or something, right? And so I think that pressure starts really early and really young. And my journey through all of this has been like so circuitous, right? None of it would have made sense planning it out ahead of time. But every step of the way, I just said like, do I love what I'm doing? Do I love the people I'm doing it for? If not, how can I tweak it in a little bit of a way that I do like that? And then I guess my approach has always been like, open every door you can. You don't have to go through them. So just because I apply to 60 jobs doesn't mean I have to interview for any of them, doesn't mean I have to take any of them. So if you see an opportunity that resonates with you, even if it's not like in line with your life plans, just keep following it, because your life plans are going to be like, you can't script it. You can't write it out ahead of time. So keep listening to your gut, do what feels right, open every door you can, and remember, you don't have to go through each door you open.
Well, once again, thank you so much, Jenna, from all of us here at EarthEcho and our trusted partners, as well as our amazing audience members. We really appreciate you coming up to EarthEcho on our virtual program today to be able to talk with us about plastics and our ocean. Special thank you to Northrop Grumman Foundation for the support of our Expeditions program. Special shout out to them. And also be sure to stay connected with EarthEcho on all of our social media channels. We are having a book giveaway, by the way, so make sure to subscribe to our channel right here and head over to Facebook to learn more. Also, I definitely will say to stay tuned to echo.org to find out more information about all amazing, exciting programs, or even the YLC, which I'm a part of, including upcoming virtual events just like this one. And once again, thank you again for joining us today. Please stay safe, stay healthy, and keep exploring. Goodbye.